Stupid justice girl. That's how Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, sneered at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. It wasn't just an insult. It was the spark that ignited a verbal war broadcast to over 320 million Americans. A clash where lies and power tried to crush truth and courage. For every second inside that hearing room, the stakes grew higher. One man desperate to protect his empire, and one woman refusing to bow, carrying the weight of justice on her shoulders. This is not politics as usual. This is a battle of words sharper than knives. Trump versus Crockett, where every sentence could change history. The chamber doors swung open with a heavy groan. Jasmine Crockett walked in, her heels echoing against the marble floor like war drums. Every step carried the weight of defiance, her gaze slicing through the crowd like steel. Reporters leaned forward, pens trembling in their hands. The air was thick, charged, restless, waiting for the spark. And then it came. Donald Trump appeared, not just as the 47th President of the United States, but as a man cloaked in arrogance. His stride was slow, deliberate. His smirk stretched wide as if he already owned the room. The cameras snapped in a frenzy. Every lens seemed to thirst for the moment. This confrontation, this collision of fire and fury. Trump's lips curled, his voice dripping with disdain. Look at this, the beauty queen who thinks she can make trouble. Gonna stir up chaos, sweetheart? The room froze. Gasps rippled across the gallery. It wasn't just an insult. It was an opening shot fired in a war no one could stop. Jasmine didn't blink. Her chin lifted, her eyes narrowing into daggers. Mr. President, you've built your empire on lies. Today the mask comes off, and the whole world will see you for what you are. The words cracked like thunder. The microphones rattled, and suddenly the chamber wasn't a hearing room. It was an arena. Trump chuckled, the sound low and venomous. You think you're ready for me? Please. I've crushed tougher than you. You're just another loud mouth with nothing to back it up. But Jasmine stepped closer. Her presence didn't shrink under his shadow. It grew, commanding every inch of space. She spoke with a fire that made even seasoned lawmakers stiffen in their seats. I'm not here to play by your rules. I'm here because truth has been suffocated long enough. And today, Mr. President, it's gasping for air. A murmur ran through the crowd. One side smirked with satisfaction, the other shifted uncomfortably, as if the ground beneath them was starting to crack. Trump slammed his hand on the table, the microphone booming with the vibration. You dare lecture me on truth? I am the truth this country needs. Without me, America falls into chaos. Jasmine didn't flinch. Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles, razor sharp. That's funny, because the only chaos I see, Mr. President, is you. The chamber erupted. Some clapped. Others shouted. The noise was electric. Chaos meeting conviction. Power clashing with defiance. And through it all, Jasmine never broke eye contact. She stared at Trump as if she could see straight through the layers of bluster, greed, and fear. Her voice rang again, firm and unshakable. Every time you speak, you reveal yourself, and by the end of this, no one will be fooled. The president leaned back in his chair, jaw tight, but the smirk never fully vanished. He thrived on confrontation, but tonight he had met an opponent who wouldn't bend, who wouldn't break. The room buzzed, heavy with anticipation. Every soul knew they weren't just watching a hearing. They were watching history fracture and reshape itself in real time. And this was only the first minute. The storm had ignited. The insults had drawn blood. And what lay ahead would be a battle more savage than anyone dared imagine. If you don't want to miss what happens when Jasmine Crockett takes on Donald Trump word for word, blow for blow, make sure you hit subscribe to Harrison Stories right now. The fire has only just begun. And like dry tinder waiting for a spark, Trump struck again. He leaned forward, his voice echoing with a practiced sneer. Jasmine Crockett, you're nothing more than a rookie politician, a nobody, a little pawn they wind up and send a yap in front of the cameras. The words landed heavy, designed to belittle, to reduce her to dust. Laughter burst from a handful of his supporters seated behind him. They clapped the table, feeding his arrogance, feeding the theater of cruelty. But Jasmine did not shrink. Her eyes locked on him like twin blades catching the light. Her reply came swift, clean, and merciless. A pawn? No, Mr. President. I'm not a pawn. I'm the mirror. And the problem with mirrors is they show every crack, every flaw, every lie a man tries to hide. Gasps spilled through the room. Reporters scribbled furiously, their pens barely keeping pace. Every sentence from Jasmine was ammunition, and each one struck the target. Trump's jaw tightened. He waved a dismissive hand, his tone dripping with mockery. Spare me the poetry, sweetheart. You've got ambition. I'll give you that. But you don't know the first thing about how this game works. You think you're fighting for truth? You're fighting for airtime. The chamber stirred, half nodding, half bristling, but Jasmine's lips parted, and out came words sharper than steel. Funny, because the only one addicted to airtime here is you. For decades, you've fed on lies like oxygen. Every speech, every rally, every desperate shout from that podium of yours, it's all been about feeding your ego, not serving this country. The audience erupted, some in thunderous applause, others in furious jeers. The divide cut the room in half, the atmosphere sparking with tension. This wasn't politics anymore. It was gladiatorial combat, and every phrase was a swing of the sword. Trump leaned in closer to his microphone, his voice booming. I made America strong. I made America respected. And you stand here because of me. Without me, you're nothing. Jasmine tilted her head, her smile faint but dangerous. You didn't make America strong. You made it fearful. Fearful of its neighbors. Fearful of its future. Fearful of anyone who doesn't look like you or kneel before you. And let me be clear, Mr. President, I kneel to no man. The words detonated. Cameras flashed like lightning. Even the marble walls seemed to vibrate from the force of her defiance. Trump's supporters hissed and booed, but Jasmine's allies rose with thunderous applause. It was no longer a hearing, it was a battlefield. The lines had been drawn, the sides chosen. Trump tried again, his voice laced with venom. You want to play tough? You'll get eaten alive. Politics chews up little dreamers like you. Justice girl, you won't last a week. Jasmine's voice cut through the noise, unwavering. Justice girl, I'll wear that name proudly. Because if standing against corruption makes me a justice girl, then I'll be the loudest one you've ever faced. And unlike you, I don't need to shout lies to be heard. A tremor ran through the crowd. People leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, hearts pounding. No one could look away. This was the kind of confrontation people would replay, dissect, and remember. Trump's face flushed red. He leaned back, feigning control, but the mask of calm was cracking. Every barb Jasmine threw struck deeper, leaving bruises no camera could hide. He raised a finger, pointing at her, as if to reclaim dominance. Mark my words, when this is over, you'll be forgotten. Just another angry face in a long line of losers. Jasmine didn't even blink. She raised her own finger, steady and precise, as though drawing a line through the air itself. When this is over, Mr. President, the only one history will forget is you, because history remembers truth, not tyranny. The chamber quaked. One half roared in triumph, the other seethed in rage. The sound was deafening, primal, unstoppable. Reporters knew they were capturing something historic. Every word, every glare, every insult would be splashed across headlines by morning. The rookie versus the president, justice versus power, truth versus ego. The spectacle had transformed into something larger than both of them. And though the night was far from over, one thing was already clear. Jasmine Crockett wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The battle lines were etched deep, the words sharper, the wounds deeper. And as the dust settled from this latest round, one truth lingered in the air. This was no longer about debate. This was war, psychological, spiritual, unrelenting. And it was only the beginning. Trump's eyes narrowed. His smirk twisted into something darker, uglier. If he couldn't win with grandstanding, he'd drag Jasmine through the mud. He leaned forward, his voice thick with venom. Jasmine Crockett, remind me, how many campaigns have you lost? How many times did the voters look at you and say, No thanks. You think you're a fighter? You're a loser dressed up as a savior. The insult cut through the chamber like broken glass. His supporters laughed again, louder this time, feeding off cruelty. They wanted blood, humiliation, submission. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She sat upright, shoulders squared, eyes steady. Her voice rolled out like thunder across marble walls. Loser? The only loser in this room is the man who lies his way through every defeat. The man who cheats, who bends the rules, who screams about fraud every time he doesn't get his way. That's not strength, Mr. President. That's cowardice. A murmur swept through the room. Some jaws dropped, some fists clenched. Every camera swiveled to capture the exact angle of Trump's face as Jasmine's words struck deep. Trump's lip curled. He jabbed a finger toward her, nearly stabbing the air. You dare call me a coward? I built empires while you were begging for scraps. I dominated the media while you were chasing microphones nobody handed you. You stand here because I allow you to stand here. The arrogance was suffocating, dripping from every syllable. But Jasmine leaned closer to her mic, her tone calm, razor sharp. You built empires? No, you built illusions. Towers of glass and debt, collapsing behind closed doors. You dominated the media? Only because chaos sells. Your greatest talent has never been leadership. It's conning people into mistaking your noise for power. The silence that followed was electric. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then the chamber erupted, clashing voices of shock, rage, and awe. Trump's cheeks burned crimson. He shuffled his papers, desperate to mask the tremor in his hand. He tried to strike again. You talk like you're righteous, but you're nothing but a fraud yourself. Didn't you stumble in your first campaigns? Didn't you have failures that nearly broke you? Don't stand there and pretend you're flawless. The words were meant to wound, to corner her into silence. But Jasmine only nodded slowly, her voice steady, each word precise. Yes, I failed. I stumbled. I bled. And that's the difference between us. My scars are proof I kept fighting. Your record? It's nothing but cover-ups, bankruptcies, lawsuits, and excuses. You don't wear scars, Mr. President. You hide them, deny them, bury them beneath your ego. The audience erupted again, louder, more divided. Some cheered as if they had witnessed a knockout punch. Others shouted in fury, faces red with rage. Trump slammed a fist against the desk. The microphone rattled violently, his papers scattered like leaves. The sound cracked through the chamber, silencing even his own allies for a split second. His face was slick with sweat, his breath ragged, his composure shredded. But Jasmine? She didn't move an inch. She sat there like a monument carved from stone, calm in the storm, her gaze unbroken. The contrast was undeniable. One leader unraveling, one warrior standing unshaken. Reporters scribbled furiously, sensing the history unfolding before them. Cameras zoomed in close, sweat glistening on Trump's forehead, a bead sliding down his temple, his jaw clenched so tight it looked ready to snap. Then they cut to Jasmine, eyes unblinking, posture unflinching, radiating a calm that made the storm around her look small. Trump shouted over the noise, "You're nothing but a clown in a costume. Justice girl, huh? More like circus girl. This country doesn't need weaklings pretending to be warriors." Jasmine tilted her head, her lips curling into the faintest smile. Clown? Look in the mirror, Mr. President. You've turned politics into a circus. You juggle lies. You parade your ego. You throw tantrums when the spotlight dims. The only clown here is the man pounding the desk because a woman refused to bow to him. The crowd gasped, then roared. The sound was a tidal wave, half cheering her courage, half jeering in rage. But all of it, every sound, was fuel. Trump slammed the desk again, louder this time. The gavel banged, calling for order, but the room was beyond control. Chaos had taken over. Chaos he once commanded, but tonight it was slipping from his grip. His supporters shouted insults. Her allies rose in applause. And through it all, Jasmine remained still, her voice carrying above the din like a lighthouse through fog. You can try every trick, every insult, every tantrum, but I will not break. Because truth doesn't tremble and justice doesn't sweat. The chamber exploded in a storm of noise. But the image was set, etched into every mind watching. Trump, red-faced, sweating, fists pounding in fury. Jasmine Crockett, calm as a mountain, unshaken, unmovable. It was the first true climax of the night, the moment when the battle became more than politics. It became survival, of truth, of dignity, of the spirit of resistance itself. And though the storm raged on, Jasmine sat rooted, unbending, her silence after those words louder than any shout Trump could ever muster. The war was escalating, and the dirtiest blows were still to come. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't waiting for Trump to land the next hit. She leaned forward, her voice rising above the chaos, sharp and unstoppable. Mr. President, let's stop pretending this is about me. Tonight, this is about you, about your lies, your frauds, your bankruptcies, your corruption. You built your legacy not on greatness, but on deceit. The chamber erupted. Gasps, scribbling pens, camera shutters, every sound a witness to the storm she had unleashed. Trump shook his head violently, trying to cut her off. Wrong, more fake news from another phony politician. But Jasmine didn't let him finish. She pounded forward, her words relentless, each sentence a dagger. You called yourself a businessman, but the truth? 6 bankruptcies. 6. You call yourself a patriot, but you dodged service when this country asked for your courage. You call yourself a leader, but every time the truth corners you, you blame everyone else. Your cabinet, your allies, even your own supporters. You throw them under the bus just to protect your fragile ego. The crowd stirred, voices clashing in disbelief and outrage. Senators shifted uncomfortably, realizing the walls around Trump were shrinking. Reporters' cameras zoomed in closer, capturing every twitch of his face. Jasmine pressed harder, her words striking like hammer blows. You lied about charity funds. You lied about taxes. You lied about election results. You lied so much the word truth has filed a restraining order against you. Laughter rippled across the chamber. Even those who had remained stoic couldn't suppress their smirks. Jasmine's attack was merciless, but it was also magnetic, raw, fearless, and unflinchingly bold. She leaned in, her eyes locked on his. And let me warn you, if you keep talking, I'll make sure the entire country laughs at you. Not because I want them to, but because the evidence you've left behind is comedy gold. The chamber froze. Every head snapped toward Trump. Every lens zoomed in, desperate to catch his reaction. For the first time he faltered. His mouth opened, but the words tangled. You don't understand. Fake witch hunt. The confidence, the swagger, the booming authority, gone. In its place was a man scrambling, sweating, groping for a line that no longer landed. Jasmine didn't stop. Her tone turned razor thin, slicing through his unraveling defenses. You talk about witch hunts? No, Mr. President. Witches don't leave paper trails. Criminals do, and yours stretches miles long. Courtrooms, indictments, investigations. It's all there. And still, you call it fake? Maybe the problem isn't the world conspiring against you. Maybe the problem is you. The silence that followed was deafening. For a heartbeat, no one moved, no one breathed. Then the noise came crashing back. Cheers, boos, shouts, applause. The chamber had become an arena, and Jasmine was center stage, unflinching, untouchable. Trump clutched his microphone with both hands, knuckles white. He barked, but the words tumbled out uneven, half coherent. Lies, all lies. They hate me because I gave this country the best economy, the strongest borders, His voice cracked. The rhythm that once carried him through rallies now betrayed him. Every stumble, every hesitation was amplified under the spotlight. Jasmine's eyes narrowed, her smile cutting like glass. Strongest borders? You separated families and caged children. Best economy? You left millions jobless while padding your friends' pockets. Mr. President, stop rewriting history. You're not the author of America's greatness. You're the editor of its darkest chapters. The chamber shook with thunderous applause from her allies. Even a few of Trump's longtime defenders looked away, unable to meet the weight of her words. Trump banged the desk, the sound desperate, hollow. Enough! This is a setup, a scam. They sent you to... Jasmine cut in, her tone fierce and final. No one sent me. I stand here because truth doesn't need permission to speak. And truth has come for you. The crowd roared again. Applause thundered. The moment burned itself into history. Trump unraveling, Jasmine towering, a warrior armed not with fists, but with words that hit harder than any blow. And as cameras captured the chaos, as the nation leaned closer to their screens, one thing was certain. Jasmine Crockett had seized control of the battlefield. She had drawn blood, and the fight would never be the same. And if you've been hooked by every word of this storm so far, don't forget, there's more fire, more truth, and more battles ahead. Hit subscribe to Harrison Stories right now and witness the clash unfold where every word matters and every moment could change history. And history was happening live. But Trump wasn't finished, not yet. He leaned into his microphone, his voice booming, almost shouting over the chamber. This entire thing is a disgrace, a circus. You're all wasting America's time listening to a bitter little woman play hero. She's not here for truth. She's here for her 15 minutes of fame. The tactic was clear. Break the rhythm, throw mud, scatter attention. Every word was a grenade, designed not to hit Jasmine directly, but to cloud the air, to blur the battlefield. He talked over her. He gestured wildly, stabbing his finger at the committee, waving papers no one could read, rattling off disconnected numbers, random statistics. A performance of noise, not substance. Unemployment, record highs, border security, the strongest ever. Military, rebuilt under me. You people don't report it, but the people know. The real Americans know. His supporters cheered, banging fists on desks, feeding his chaos. For a moment, it felt like the room might spin out of control. But Jasmine Crockett sat still, her eyes narrowed, waiting. And when the noise reached its peak, she struck like lightning. Her voice cut through the madness, crisp, unshakable. Mr. President, don't waste this chamber's time with cheap tricks. You drown us in noise because you're terrified of silence, because silence forces you to face the truth. The laughter, the shouting, it all stuttered. The air cracked with her words. Even Trump's allies blinked, unsettled. She leaned in closer, her tone dropping into a blade's edge. Don't try your discount carnival games on me. Don't spew rants to dodge the facts. Because if you do, I will cut through every word and you will regret it. The chamber erupted again, but now the sound was different. It wasn't just a battle of noise anymore. It was Jasmine owning the room. Trump tried to talk over her, but his rhythm broke. Every time he started, "Witch hunt, fake news, radical left," she answered clean, sharp, undeniable. You call it fake because you're afraid it's real. You call it a witch hunt because you see the fire at your own feet. You blame the left because you can't face the mirror on your right. Each rebuttal landed like a hammer strike. The microphones trembled from the collision of voices, metal stands shaking under the sheer force of the duel. The audience leaned forward, eyes wide. This wasn't a hearing anymore. It was theater, spectacle, blood sport. Every second carried the weight of history, every word the power to ignite or destroy. Online, the storm was even bigger. Twitter lit up with hashtags, Jas Crockett vs. Trump, Danashout Justice Girl, Mashout Meltdown 47. Clips of the shouting match hit millions of views within minutes. Comment sections roared with arguments, laughter, outrage. For those watching at home, it felt like gladiators locked in mortal combat. Only this battle wasn't with swords, but with truths and lies hurled like fireballs across the chamber. Trump slammed the table again, his voice cracking. Lies, she's lying, they all lie. But Jasmine leaned forward, her face calm, her voice steady. Mr. President, screaming louder doesn't make you right. It only makes you scared. The words detonated like dynamite. Gasps filled the chamber. Trump froze for half a second, caught off guard by the brutal precision of her strike. Then he fumbled. His sentences stumbled, breaking apart. No, listen, this This is corruption. It's all, you people don't, this is, it was incoherence, chaos spiraling out of control. The once mighty showman looked like a cornered animal, thrashing against shadows. And Jasmine? She didn't even raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her composure was the weapon, her restraint the blade. You wanted chaos, Mr. President. Here it is. But the difference between us is simple. Chaos consumes you. I command it. The words landed, cold and final. The room exploded, but no one could deny who controlled the stage now. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just holding her ground. She was rewriting the rules. The chamber wasn't Trump's circus anymore. It was her battlefield. And as the world watched, as social media burned with frenzy, as headlines raced to capture the clash, one truth grew clearer with every passing second. Donald Trump had met his match, and the fight was far from over. Jasmine Crockett knew it was time to switch weapons. The shouting, the insults, the chaos, those had already shaken him. But now she would bring the kind of proof that no amount of noise could bury. She reached for a folder, thick with documents, highlighted pages marked like battle scars. Her voice rang clear, each syllable deliberate. Mr. President, let's talk about facts. Let's talk about evidence. Let's talk about the receipts you've spent years pretending don't exist. The chamber hushed. Even the loudest supporters stilled, curiosity pinning them to their seats. Jasmine slid the first sheet across the desk. Here's a financial record showing funds redirected from your so-called charity into your personal business. You called it generosity, yet the money fed your empire, not the people you promised to help. Gas spread like ripples through water. Cameras zoomed in on the page, the words glowing beneath the overhead lights. Trump waved his hand, scoffing. Fake, total fake. My people will prove it's a lie. I've given more to charity than anyone in this room, probably more than you ever made in your life. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She raised another sheet. And here's the court ruling. Your fake charity was shut down for fraud. That's not my opinion. That's the law's judgment. The silence after her words was thick, suffocating. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashing like lightning. Trump's face twitched. He tried again, louder, angrier. Out of context! Witch hunt! They all hate me. They want to destroy me because I'm strong. Jasmine's reply was surgical, her tone cutting deeper with every word. You call it a witch hunt, Mr. President. But tell me, how many witches leave paper trails, court records, and video footage behind? She clicked a remote. On the screens around the chamber, a clip played. Trump himself at a rally, promising he had the best tax returns in history, swearing he would release them soon. The date glowed in the corner, 7 years ago. The chamber buzzed with disbelief, heads shaking, whispers rising. Jasmine's voice sliced through the murmurs. And yet, 7 years later, nothing. Because the truth wasn't golden, it was rotten. Hidden offshore accounts, loopholes, debts buried under fake numbers. You promised transparency, but you delivered lies. Trump lurched forward, his words spilling out, desperate. No, wrong! I paid millions, more than anyone. But Jasmine cut him off, her tone sharp as broken glass. Stop. You lied so much people are tired of hearing you. You lied until your words became noise, until truth itself was drowning. And tonight, Mr. President, the noise ends. The chamber erupted, some applauding, some shouting, but none unmoved. The air crackled with tension so thick it seemed the walls themselves might burst. Trump banged his fist again, his face twisted in anger. You don't know what you're talking about. You're twisting everything, taking little pieces. Jasmine leaned in, her words slicing through his denial. Pieces? Mr. President, I'm not twisting pieces. I'm laying out the whole picture. And it's ugly. Every document, every clip, every witness points to the same truth. You are not the victim. You are the deceiver. The reporters erupted, capturing every second. Social media feeds flared like wildfire. Clips of Jasmine's words trended instantly, hashtags multiplying by the minute. Trump tried to interrupt again, his words stumbling. This is all fake news, enemies of the people. But his voice cracked, collapsing under its own weight. The once commanding tone now sounded brittle, fragile, desperate. And Jasmine seized the moment. She raised her hand, palm open, commanding the room's attention. Look at him. Listen closely. When cornered by truth, he shouts. When shown evidence, he denies. When faced with justice, he hides behind noise. But the facts are louder than his voice, and the facts do not lie. The chamber rose in applause. Loud, furious, undeniable. Even some who had come skeptical now nodded, their faces lit with reluctant respect. Jasmine had turned the tide. Trump slammed his hand again, sweat glistening under the harsh lights. But his words no longer landed. They scattered, broken, drowned by the force of her evidence. Jasmine leaned back, calm, collected, her eyes never leaving his. Her final line felt like a gavel strike. The more you deny, the more you prove me right. The chamber shook with reaction, half triumphant, half furious. But in that moment, one truth was clear. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just surviving the storm. She was the storm. And for the first time that night, Donald Trump looked like a man who knew he was losing. The swagger was slipping. The insults that once thundered now stumbled out half-formed, jagged and weak. His hands fidgeted on the desk, his knuckles pale as he clenched and unclenched his fists. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, voice trembling between rage and desperation. You think you can embarrass me? You think you can humiliate me in front of the whole country? I built towers taller than your dreams. I crushed opponents stronger than you. If you push me, you'll regret it. You don't know who you're messing with. The words hung heavy in the chamber, not like thunder, but like smoke, thick, suffocating, desperate to choke out the air. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't lean back. She smiled, slow, deliberate, sharp as a blade. She tilted her head slightly, eyes locked on him. Doa toya. You're not even worth the fear. I've stared down lies bigger than you, Mr. Trump, and they all crumbled the same way, under the weight of their own emptiness. A murmur rippled through the audience. Reporters' pens froze mid-scratch. Even Trump's own allies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The threat in his voice exposed as hollow. He slammed his palm on the table, microphone shaking, rattling like his own unraveling composure. You listen to me. If you keep going, you'll regret this for the rest of your career. People will come after you. You'll be destroyed. The threat echoed, sharp, but it rang false. It wasn't power speaking. It was fear pretending to be power, and Jasmine knew it. Her laugh, a low, dismissive chuckle, cut through the tension like lightning slicing the night sky. Destroyed? She repeated, her tone dripping with mockery. Mr. Trump, you've been predicting my downfall for the last hour. Funny thing is, the only one crumbling in front of this audience is you. The chamber roared, not with applause, but with that dangerous electric energy of a crowd realizing the tide had shifted. Phones lit up, hashtags spiraling. Trump cornered began flashing across screens in real time. Trump tried again, but his words collided, stammering. She's lying. She's making this up. I've beaten tougher enemies, dictators, world leaders. They all respected me. She's nothing. But the stutter betrayed him. The sweat glistening on his forehead betrayed him. The crack in his voice betrayed him. Jasmine leaned forward now, her tone softer, but sharper than any scream. Respect? You confuse fear with respect. And tonight, Mr. Trump, no one here fears you anymore. A silence, heavier than thunder, fell across the chamber. Every ear strained, every camera focused, every viewer holding their breath. It wasn't just a statement, it was a verdict. Trump blinked rapidly, shifting in his seat. The man who once commanded rallies of thousands now looked like a cornered animal, thrashing, teeth bared, but nowhere to run. He jabbed a finger toward Jasmine, his voice cracking. You're weak. You don't know strength. You'll see, I'll hit back harder than you can even imagine. But the conviction wasn't there. The words, once weapons, now felt like dull echoes. And Jasmine, sensing the unraveling, pressed harder. Hit back? You've been swinging for hours and every punch missed. You threatened, you lied, you shouted, and still here you are, cornered, the world watching you stumble. The audience erupted again, some cheering, some jeering, but all transfixed. The power that once clung to Trump like armor was slipping, leaking through the cracks of his own fury. Jasmine sat back, crossing her arms, her smile unwavering. You see, Mr. Trump, real strength isn't built on threats. It's built on truth. And truth doesn't sweat, it doesn't stammer, and it doesn't need to shout to be heard. Trump's jaw tightened, his teeth grinding. He wanted to explode, to unleash the rage boiling inside. But every time he tried, his words fell flatter, weaker, drowned by the weight of her calm. The crowd began to shift, physically, emotionally, politically. They weren't leaning toward Trump anymore. They were leaning toward Jasmine. The energy in the chamber told the story before words could. The balance of power was changing. The scales were tilting, and everyone could feel it. For Trump, the realization cut deep. He had made a career out of intimidation, out of towering over opponents until they bent under pressure. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't bending. She was breaking him down piece by piece, calmly, mercilessly. Trump gripped the desk harder, knuckles white, sweat dripping, eyes darting. He was a fighter still, but one dragged to the ropes, gasping, swinging at shadows. And the audience knew it. The headlines forming in real time knew it. The momentum belonged to her now. Still, deep in his eyes flickered something else, something dangerous. The kind of desperation that makes a man reach for his lowest, dirtiest trick. The chamber vibrated with tension, as if everyone sensed it coming. The calm before the next eruption, the shadow of a counterstrike, because Donald Trump might be cornered, but he was not done, and his retaliation was about to shake the room. Trump's lips curled into something halfway between a sneer and a smirk, the kind of expression that belonged more to a gambler laying down his final card than to a statesman. He leaned into the microphone, his voice suddenly steady, almost gleeful. "You think you've won, Jasmine?" he said, dragging her name out like an insult. "You think you can corner me with words? No. Tonight I've brought backup." The chamber stirred. Reporters glanced at one another. Even Jasmine narrowed her eyes, sensing the shift. Trump raised his hand toward the door. A moment later it creaked open, and in walked a man in a tailored suit, clutching a stack of papers thick as a novel. His gait was rehearsed, confident, as though this appearance had been staged down to the last second. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump announced, his chest swelling, "meet the witness who knows exactly who Jasmine Crockett really is. A fraud, a liar, someone unfit to lecture me, let alone this nation." Gasps echoed across the chamber. Cameras pivoted in unison. Theatrics, that was Trump's specialty. He was turning the hearing into a circus, a show trial, a spectacle designed not for truth, but for shock. The so-called witness stepped forward, adjusting his tie. "I have here," he declared, raising the papers like holy scripture, "evidence of Jasmine Crockett's past failures, cases she lost, missteps she made, words she can't take back." The audience buzzed, the room trembling with anticipation. Trump leaned back, smug again, the predator regaining his poise. "See," he said, almost laughing, "you're not the warrior you pretend to be, Jasmine. You're nothing but a loser, exposed by your own record." It was a heavy blow. For a moment, silence gripped the room. Even Jasmine's allies glanced toward her, tense, uncertain of her next move. But Jasmine didn't blink. She rose from her seat slowly, deliberately, each movement controlled like a blade being unsheathed. Her gaze locked on the witness, then slid back to Trump, her expression unreadable. Cold, sharp, unflinching. "Is this your secret weapon, Mr. Trump?" she asked softly, her voice carrying farther than any shout. "A paid puppet with a stack of half-truths?" Trump scowled. "Don't dismiss him." But Jasmine cut him off, her voice slicing clean through his. "Let's examine this witness, shall we?" She turned, eyes burning into the man clutching the papers. "You claim to know my record? Good. Let's go line by line. Every case I lost, I learned. Every misstep I made, I corrected. And unlike you, Mr. Trump, I don't bury my failures in lies. I grow from them." The witness faltered, his grip on the papers loosening slightly. Jasmine pressed harder. "Tell me, who paid for those documents you're waving? Who handed you that script? Did you walk in here tonight to tell the truth, or just to play your part in Donald Trump's performance? The man's face paled. The chamber erupted in murmurs. And Trump, visibly rattled, barked, "Answer her. Tell them the truth about her incompetence." But the damage was done. The witness stammered, the confidence draining. I, I was asked to bring these records. Jasmine seized the opening. Exactly. You were asked, bought, rehearsed, paraded out like a prop. That's the difference between you and me, Mr. Trump. I don't need paid actors to stand behind me. I stand on my own record, my own strength, my own truth. Her voice rose now, every syllable cutting deeper. And if you think a pile of cherry-picked papers can erase the lies, the fraud, the chaos you've unleashed on this country, you're gravely mistaken. The audience erupted, gasps, shouts, even applause from a corner that had remained silent until now. The air crackled with the electricity of revelation, of Trump's strategy blowing up in his face. Trump's smirk had evaporated. His jaw twitched, his fist clenched. He leaned into the microphone, sputtering. You don't get to turn this around on me. She's the liar. But Jasmine slammed her hand on the desk, her voice booming over his. Look at him. This is what desperation looks like. This is what happens when the so-called strong man realizes his strength is just smoke. The witness shrank, shuffling his papers nervously. Trump's voice grew more erratic, more fractured. And Jasmine, steady, relentless, drove the knife deeper. Every eye in this room sees it. Every camera records it. You thought this witness would save you. Instead, he exposed you, your tricks, your fear, your emptiness. You're not fighting me, Mr. Trump. You're fighting the truth. And the truth is winning. The chamber thundered with noise now, like a storm breaking. Reporters shouted into phones, live feeds exploding online. Hashtags multiplied, screens flashing with Jasmine's words, her defiance, her dominance. Trump sat rigid, his face flushed, his plans crumbling around him. For the first time in hours, he had no words, no defense, no shield. The counterstrike he'd promised had backfired, spectacularly. And Jasmine Crockett stood tall, unshaken, her voice ringing through the chaos like a verdict. Try harder, Mr. Trump, because every trick you play, I'll break it. Every lie you tell, I'll expose it. Every weapon you swing, I'll turn it back on you. The audience was breathless. The clash had never been fiercer, and yet somehow the storm was still building. Trump sat rigid, still reeling from his failed stunt with the so-called witness. His allies shifted uneasily, their eyes darting between Jasmine and their leader as though silently pleading for him to find his footing again. But the footing was gone. The ground beneath him was crumbling, and Jasmine Crockett was the one swinging the hammer. She rose slowly, deliberately, her presence filling the chamber without needing to raise her voice. Her eyes locked on Trump, who tried to hold her gaze but failed, looking away for a fleeting second. That second was enough. Jasmine leaned into the microphone. So this is your strategy? She asked, her voice steady but sharp. Stacked papers? A stammering witness? And empty threats? Mr. Trump, you came here pretending to be the conductor of this orchestra, but right now, you're not holding the baton. You're just another man flailing while the music drowns you. Gasps filled the chamber. The line sliced clean through the tension, like a whip cracking in the air. Trump shot forward, pointing a trembling finger. I am still in control here. Don't you dare! But Jasmine cut him off, her timing ruthless. In control, she laughed, a cold, biting sound. Look at you, sweating, shouting, dragging in weak backup that falls apart under the first question. And you still think you're calling the shots? She leaned closer, her tone dropping, sharper, more dangerous. Keep dreaming. You've lost the room, Mr. Trump. You've lost the people, and you're losing yourself. The chamber exploded. Reporters scribbling furiously, cameras flashing, social feeds igniting like wildfire. Trump losing control trended instantly, millions of comments flooding in from viewers online who could almost feel the electricity of the showdown through their screens. Trump tried to interrupt, his voice rising, but Jasmine pressed forward, relentless. You see, the difference between us is simple. You think power is about noise, about how loud you can shout, about how many people you can drag in to parrot your lies. But real power, Mr. Trump, is about clarity. It's about truth. And right now, the truth is tearing you apart. Her words cut deeper with each syllable, building like a storm surge threatening to sweep him away. Do you think people can't see through you? She continued, her eyes flashing. Do you think they don't notice how every time you're cornered, you reach for theatrics, for tricks, for chaos? It's pathetic, and it's failing, spectacularly. The audience roared, some even clapping despite the formal setting. Trump's allies glanced at each other in panic, whispers hissing between them as their leader faltered. Trump slammed both fists on the desk, the microphone squealing. I am not failing. She's twisting everything. She's lying. She always lies. But the words lacked weight. They collapsed under their own desperation. Jasmine tilted her head, smiling faintly, almost pitying him. Lies, she said softly. You've repeated that word so many times tonight, it's lost all meaning. You throw it at me because it's easier than facing your own reflection. But here's the truth, Mr. Trump. Every lie you've told, every dirty trick you've pulled, every attempt to bully and bluster, it's all unraveling, right here, right now. Trump's face flushed crimson, sweat trickling down his temple. He looked less like a president and more like a cornered man fighting to keep his mask from slipping. And Jasmine, calm, precise, merciless, twisted the knife one last time. You thought you were still running this show. You thought you could control the narrative, spin the crowd, bend reality to your will. But tonight proved something, didn't it? She leaned forward, her words slow, deliberate, echoing through every camera lens. You're not in charge anymore. The truth is, the chamber fell silent for a heartbeat. Then it erupted. Gasps, shouts, the buzz of history being made in real time. Online comments exploded in waves. She destroyed him. This is the takedown of the decade. I've never seen Trump this rattled. Viewers described the sensation of watching not just a debate, but a dismantling, like watching a fortress collapse brick by brick. And the satisfaction rippled through the crowd, a visceral thrill of seeing the bully finally stripped bare. Trump's allies leaned in, whispering frantically, but the damage was irreversible. Their leader wasn't commanding the battlefield anymore. He was staggering on it. Jasmine sat back, her voice steady as she delivered the final strike of the round. Keep shouting, Mr. Trump. Keep pretending, because every time you open your mouth, the world sees the truth you've been trying to hide. And it's not strength they see. It's weakness. Trump froze, jaw clenched, but no words came. The silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. The storm raged on, but now everyone knew. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just surviving this clash. She was owning it, and Trump's empire of noise was collapsing under the weight of her precision. Now the distance between them seemed to vanish. It was no longer Trump versus a chamber or Jasmine versus a witness. It was Trump and Jasmine, face to face, locked in a collision that felt less like a debate and more like a battlefield. The chamber was silent, breathless, the air vibrating with anticipation. Every camera zoomed in, every microphone quivered, every pulse in the room beat faster. Trump leaned forward, his face flushed, his voice trembling with rage. You think you're clever, don't you? You think these cheap lines, these little jabs make you strong? You're nothing but a show-off, a fraud, a loudmouth pretending to be righteous? Jasmine leaned back slightly, her smile cutting deeper than any insult. Pretending? She said, her tone dripping with mockery. Mr. Trump, the only person pretending here is you. Pretending to be in control, pretending to be respected, pretending that your empire isn't already crumbling in front of millions. The words detonated like grenades. The chamber gasped, reporters typing furiously, the clash vibrating across live streams around the world. Trump's hands shook as he slammed the desk again, the microphone screeching. You shut your mouth. You don't have the right to lecture me. I've built more, done more, been more than you could ever dream. Jasmine leaned forward now, her eyes burning into his. Built more? All I see are towers of lies, castles of fraud, and walls so thin that the truth slices right through them. Done more? Yes, more chaos, more division, more shame. And been more? You're right. You've been more of a clown than any leader this nation has ever seen." The audience erupted, the chamber shaking with the sound of disbelief and exhilaration. Phones flashed, hashtags surged. Trump the clown trended within seconds. Trump's face twisted with fury. "You dare call me a clown? You?" Jasmine cut him off with surgical precision. "Say one more word, and it won't sound like a president. It'll sound exactly like what you've become. A screaming fool in a suit." The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye locked on him, every camera capturing the moment he froze. Caught between the need to lash out and the weight of knowing that every outburst was another self-inflicted wound. Trump's voice cracked as he tried to recover. "You think you're so tough, don't you? You think people will remember you after tonight? No, they'll remember me. They always do." Jasmine's laugh sliced the air, cold and merciless. "Oh, they'll remember you, Mr. Trump. Don't worry. They'll remember the tantrums, the threats, the desperation dripping from your every word. They'll remember watching you unravel, live in front of the world. And they'll remember me as the one who finally called you what you are, a fraudster wrapped in arrogance." Gasps rippled across the chamber again, like waves crashing against stone. Even Trump's allies lowered their heads, unable to disguise the cracks of panic spreading across their faces. He growled into the microphone, his voice raw. "You don't know strength. You don't know what it takes to survive at the top." Jasmine leaned in, her words calm but laced with fire. "Strength isn't screaming. It isn't bullying. It isn't silencing others with fear. Strength is standing your ground when liars and bullies come swinging. And tonight, Mr. Trump, I'm still standing. You're the one shaking." Trump's breathing was ragged now, each inhale a battle. His hair clung to his damp forehead, his tie loosened, his voice sputtering between rage and collapse. But Jasmine, she was steady, her presence towering, her words hitting harder with every blow. "You thought this was your stage," she continued, her voice echoing. "You thought you could intimidate me, drown me out, outshout me, outlie me. But all you've done tonight is prove one thing." She paused, letting the silence stretch, every eye, every lens, every heartbeat waiting. "You're not untouchable. You're not unbreakable. You're just loud." The chamber erupted like a bomb had gone off. Some gasped, some shouted, some even laughed. The tension snapped into chaos, a release of all the pressure that had been building for hours. Trump's face contorted, his lips quivering, his hands slamming the table once more. But this time, there was no strength behind the sound. Just frustration, just desperation, just noise. The cameras captured it all, the sweat, the shaking, the collapse. Jasmine leaned back, her voice quiet but lethal. "And when the noise dies down, Mr. Trump, there's nothing left but silence. And silence tells the truth louder than you ever could." The chamber held its breath again, that chilling pause before history cements itself. The duel had reached its peak. Every word had been a blade. Every strike had been aimed at the heart. And in that moment, it was clear to all. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just holding her ground. She was winning the war. But wars rarely end cleanly. And this battlefield was about to deliver one last devastating surprise. The gavel slammed, signaling the official close of the hearing. Relief rippled across the chamber, people exhaling after hours of relentless confrontation. Reporters were already packing up their notes, analysts whispering into microphones about Jasmine's dominance, about Trump's collapse under pressure. Trump adjusted his tie with trembling hands, forcing a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. "See? Over. Nothing sticks. Nothing ever sticks," he muttered under his breath, loud enough for cameras to catch. His supporters chuckled nervously, eager to believe the storm had passed. But Jasmine didn't move. She sat calmly, eyes sharp, lips curved in the faintest of smiles, almost as if she knew something no one else did. Then it happened. A clerk entered the chamber with a folder clutched tightly to his chest, moving quickly, almost breathlessly. He whispered into the ear of the committee chair, who froze mid-sentence, eyes widening at the words on the page. The room shifted, chairs creaking, whispers sparking like fire through dry grass. The chair cleared his throat, voice grave. "Before we adjourn completely, there has been a development. New evidence has surfaced. Evidence that raises serious legal implications. Gas shot through the room. Reporters scrambled back into their seats, cameras snapping back on, lenses zooming like predators smelling blood. Trump's head jerked up, his smugness cracking. What evidence? This is a witch hunt trick. Fake news garbage. Don't listen to this. But the folder was opened. Pages spread across the table. Screens flickered as files appeared digitally for all to see. Financial documents, signed statements, a video recording time-stamped and authenticated. The kind of evidence that didn't just sting, it cut. Jasmine leaned forward, her voice a velvet blade. Mr. Trump, you thought tonight was about insults and noise, about who could shout louder. But tell me, what will you shout at a subpoena? What insult silences a sworn affidavit? What nickname drowns out video proof? The chamber exploded with murmurs, journalists typing furiously, news outlets already flashing, breaking banners across the world. New evidence against Trump. Trump's face drained of color. That's fake. It's forged. You people are setting me up. This is treason. His words stumbled, the fury sounding more like panic. Jasmine tilted her head, almost amused. Treason? No, Mr. Trump. Treason is what you flirted with when you thought no one was watching. This is accountability knocking at your door. The crowd reacted viscerally, some cheering, some gasping, some whispering to their neighbors with wide eyes. Even senators on the opposite aisle leaned in, their expressions tense, calculating what this twist meant for the man they had defended for years. Reporters shouted questions over one another. Mr. Trump, do you deny the documents? Congresswoman Crockett, did you anticipate this? Is this the beginning of legal proceedings? Trump tried to wave them off, but his hands shook. He slammed the table again, but this time it wasn't fury. It was desperation, a drowning man clawing for anything to keep himself afloat. Jasmine remained poised, her voice calm, almost too calm. Mr. Trump, you've spent the night pretending you're untouchable, but now the walls are closing in. You thought you could walk out of here with noise and bluster. Instead, you're walking out with a shadow that will follow you to every courtroom, every hearing, every moment from now on. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer, hungry for the weight of her words. And then she delivered the final cut, soft and deadly. You thought you escaped tonight. Oh no, tonight was just the prelude. The real reckoning is only beginning. The room froze, electrified, as her words lingered in the air. Trump sputtered, pointing, shouting, "This isn't over. I'll fight this. I'll crush every one of you." His voice cracked, his chest heaved, but no one seemed to hear him anymore. Because the story had already shifted. The duel of words had been the headline. But the twist, the sudden shadow of evidence, was the aftershock that would ripple through the nation. Viewers online erupted, timelines flooded with clips of Jasmine's smirk, her cutting line, the reveal of damning documents. Memes were born in seconds, hashtags exploding across platforms. Reckoning, shock, Trump exposed, shocks, Crockett storm. The senators sat stunned, the reporters shouted, the crowd buzzed with disbelief. But Jasmine? She simply leaned back in her chair, her composure unbroken, her expression that of someone who knew this wasn't just a victory, it was a warning. Because while she had won the night, the war was far from finished. This twist wasn't closure, it was ignition. And as the gavel struck one last time, echoing through the chamber like a thunderclap, everyone realized something chilling. The storm had not ended. It had only just begun again. Yet for tonight, one truth was undeniable. Jasmine Crockett had stood her ground, and she had prevailed. As the gavel echoed one last time, Jasmine rose from her chair with calm authority. She didn't rush, didn't gloat, didn't need to. Her very presence carried the weight of victory. Her eyes were steady, sharp as steel, and when they swept across the chamber, it felt as though the room itself leaned toward her, pulled by a force greater than noise or fury, pulled by conviction. Then it happened. The audience rose to their feet, first a handful, then a wave, until the chamber thundered with applause. Hands clapped, voices cheered, cameras flashed like lightning across the storm's aftermath. Reporters whispered, some openly smiling, their pens racing to capture the headline that had already written itself. Jasmine Crockett, the warrior who stood against Trump and did not bend. Jasmine gave a single nod, acknowledging the energy, but her expression never softened into arrogance. She wasn't here for applause. She was here for truth. Behind her, chaos unfurled. Donald Trump was surrounded, his allies bickering, their voices sharp and panicked. Some urged him to leave quickly. Others argued about strategy. Still others simply looked away, their loyalty already cracking under the weight of the night's revelations. Trump's face was flushed, his gestures frantic, his voice rising and falling in a desperate rhythm. "Fake! Lies! Witch hunt!" he barked. But the words felt smaller now, drowned beneath the roar of applause for the woman who had dismantled him piece by piece. For the first time, his empire of bluster looked fragile. Jasmine paused at the chamber doors. She turned slightly, not to mock, not to sneer, but to deliver one final look, a glance sharpened by resolve. Her voice cut through the din, measured and clear. Justice doesn't shout, it endures. And tonight, it spoke louder than you ever could. The room held its breath. Cameras snapped, pens scratched furiously. Trump froze mid-gesture, his mouth half open, unable to counter words so simple, so devastatingly final. And then she was gone. Jasmine stepped into the corridor, greeted by a wall of flashing lights and microphones, the buzz of the press hungry for every syllable. But she didn't falter. She moved with purpose, each stride a declaration. When a reporter shouted, "Congresswoman Crockett, do you consider this a victory?" She smiled faintly, her reply slicing the air like a blade. "This isn't about victory, it's about truth. Tonight wasn't mine. It belonged to the people who still believe in justice, and to those who are brave enough to fight for it." The words landed like sparks in dry kindling, igniting headlines, fueling chants from supporters gathered outside. The crowd erupted, waving signs, chanting her name, their voices carrying down the marble halls and into the night air. Trump, meanwhile, was escorted out the back. His entourage shielded him from the cameras, but they couldn't shield him from the truth. His supporters online scrambled to spin, his detractors surged with momentum, and his allies whispered about fractures too deep to mend. The world was watching, and the world had seen him cornered. But more than that, the world had seen her, Jasmine Crockett, the storm that refused to be silenced. The warrior who fought not with fists or fury, but with words sharper than knives, with courage that could not be bent, with a voice that rang louder than 1,000 shouts of bluster. In that moment, she became more than a congresswoman. She became a symbol. The applause, the headlines, the chants, those were fleeting. But what endured was the message etched into the night, that truth can rise above lies, that courage can stand taller than fear, that justice, when wielded with clarity and resolve, can shake even the most powerful to their core. Jasmine didn't look back as she walked into the night, the cameras chasing, the crowd surging. She didn't need to. Her mark was already made. Behind her, Donald Trump remained ensnared in the chaos he had created, his shouts echoing in a chamber that no longer listened. Ahead of her, the path was uncertain, fraught with battles yet to come. But she didn't flinch, because she knew something that night had proven beyond doubt. Words wielded with courage could be stronger than walls, stronger than fear, stronger than the very empires built on deception. And so the hearing ended, not with silence, but with a roar. The roar of a people reminded that justice is not a whisper. It is thunder when spoken by the brave. The story was not over. It had only reached its first great turning point, and at its heart stood Jasmine Crockett, not just a fighter, not just a survivor, but a warrior of justice. In the end, the clash between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump was more than a battle of voices. It was a reminder that truth, though fragile, can stand unbroken when carried by courage. Power may shout, deceive, and twist, but it cannot outlast the steady resolve of justice. And in a world often shaken by lies, each of us is called to choose, to be silent or to speak with the kind of bravery that lights the path for others. If this battle shook you, Don't look away. Think on it. Talk about it. Pass it to someone who still believes lies can be broken by truth. Subscribe to Harrison Stories, where voices fight and silence never wins. Hit the bell, because the next confrontation won't be polite. It will be fierce, and it may change how you see justice itself. This story is a fictional dramatization, drawn from the shadows of real power, real injustice, and the courage to resist. Any resemblance to actual people or events is symbolic, meant for reflection, critique, and awakening. Thank you for watching. Justice doesn't wait for permission. Justice demands to be heard. This is Harrison Stories.